Hello, I'm Shawn Bland at the Art Center of Wilmington Island. I would like to show you how to paint a manatee today, step by step. You can begin with a big wide brush that you can use to paint the blue background space. I have several different blues that I'll be using for the background. This is a cerulean blue. I also have an ultramarine blue that's a little bit darker. And of course, we'll be using a lot of white. I'm going to put those colors on my palette, and then I'm just going to begin using those to go back and forth in this space. At the top of the canvas, I'm going to go around the manatee a little bit, but I'm going to overpaint over those lines because I know what shape he has, and I can go back and just paint the manatee right over this blue water. So you don't have to be careful too much. It's easy to just paint the whole space first and then go back and put the manatee right over that overpainting. The next area that I'm going to go use is going to be the darker blue, so I'm going to pick up that color. This is the ultramarine. If you have two blues, it works great. These are two shades of blue that I like to use together because they work very well together. They complement each other, with this one really showing the depth that it needs to, and this one really showing the lightness against that dark, deep blue color. So that is really helpful to an artist as they begin to create a composition. Now, in this particular picture, and on my palette, you can see the reason that I like putting the colors all out and getting them on my brush is I like for them to mix. I don't like to keep everything separated because if the colors here and here, more than likely those colors are going to blend to make a area that feels like it is in the same space. So that is very important. But I'm using the whole width of my brush to paint an area and really fill it in so that it is fun and easy and it doesn't take much time. So if you lay down the whole brush and just brush it across, you can see sometimes I'm just picking up a little bit of the other colors that are on my palette, just a smidgen of them, to mix them in there and blend. Sometimes it's fun to use colors right out of the tube, but most time I find it more creative to mix and make my own colors by mixing just smidgens of colors together. And as you can see, you can get a lot of different colors when you blend those together. I'm also going to go into this middle space that you can see that is behind him. So we make sure we get that dark space in. Don't forget while you're painting, it's always important to load your brush with enough paint. It is also important that you use medium in your paint brush to make it flow like you want it to. In this particular one, since we're using acrylic, we need some water. And if you put that on there, you can see how it's just so easy to slide the color across your canvas. The paint just slides across. Okay, so I went through and added light first and then the dark ultramarine blue. And now I actually want to come in and go lighter again. I'm going to do it like the bottom of the ocean surface here. So in addition to light blues and dark blues, I'm also going to add a little bit of brown to show the bottom space. That's a little bit of brown, but I put it right into the other light blue and dark blue on my canvas so that you can see them all working together. If I mix those together with the brown and the blue, see how you get that grayish tone? I just love that on the bottom space. It really anchors the painting with the brown, and it gives it that natural color that you would want for the bottom of the ocean. So even though I'm using cerulean blue, I'm using ultramarine blue, I picked up some of the brown for, it's actually called burnt sienna, but any brown would work. And then, of course, I had the white. And so mixing all those colors together, you can see using the width of the brush, I can just stroke across and get the feel of it being a land space, the bottom of the ocean. But at the same time, you can tell that the water is floating right over it, and that this manatee is in all of that space. And that's what we want you to feel. We want you to feel like that he is in the water, and you can do that by adding this brown earthy color into your paint as you blend those blue colors of the water that you see. Sometimes I use the toe of my brush to go around and to make a line if I need an edge. If I just want to paint over it, I can, and then I can come back and paint the manatee right on top of it. Okay, so I used that for the background space. I used a wide brush. Now I'm going to go in for the manatee. I'm basically going to work from dark to light. Black and white will be the main colors, and then I'll add a little bit of the burnt sienna to the palette to make him look natural, like his color. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to actually take the same brush, and now I'm going to use black in my palette with brown. It's mostly a darker color in this area, so I'm going to use that first. I am using the toe of my brush to create the line that I want so that you can see where the different colors are. A little bit of brown, a lot of black, using the toe of my brush, loading it with water, mixing it with black, using the toe of my brush to get an edge, bringing the brush around, coming in, using the toe, going around, circling in, up and down and around. And you can see the browns and blacks just mix so nicely together to make that work. I'm going to bring that black up just a little bit, and then immediately I'm going to start adding this section, because it is darker, it's black. Using the toe of the brush, I'm going to come in, picking up more black. Loading the brush is so important to making your brush work the way you want it to. We want it just to slide right in there. As we work on the black area here and here, and continuing the black area going in this way, that's the area that's darkest first. So I'll bring the brush around and around and around the whole width of the brush. It's so easy to lay that color in that way. I'm going to do the same thing here, using the whole width of the brush, going around. Remember, every time you use your brush and deliver the paint on the canvas, then you've used it up. So you have to go back to your palette again to get more paint. If you've got a nice flat brush like this, it is so easy to go in and make your edges. But if you don't, you may decide that you want to use a round brush to make the edges, or a little tiny space if you don't like getting into the corners. So you can certainly use a small round brush like this if you need to get into the corner. You just load your brush with the paint and go in and use the point to push the paint where you want it to go. Now that I have most of my dark underneath laid in, I'm going to put just a little bit of that in the nose area, because that's the blackest part. This area underneath is getting no light from above, so that's why it's so dark. So now we're going to start lightening up the black. A few minutes ago we added a little bit of the brown with it. We're going to add a little bit more brown, so I'm going to lay it here, and then we're going to add a good bit of white. Now if we add white and black and brown together, this is the color that we get. It's a nice transition from the darker color to the medium color. And I'm using the exact same stroke of my brush. I'm laying it down flat, and then I'm pulling the paint over towards the middle. And I'm just doing that until I have filled up that middle space. Now this is going to get lighter because it is the edge on the side where the light is coming in. So I'm going to flick, instead of coming up, I'm going to go down with the white like this, and I'm going to go over where I've already painted and blend. And you can see now I've got a wonderful blend that goes from a lighter color to a medium color to a darker color. And that's what I'm looking for most in this painting today. The same thing is going to happen in this area. I'm taking the black and the brown mixed together. I'm going to start in this middle section of his body, and I'm going to use the toe of my brush to make an edge to show you where these two places change. So we're going from the dark area here to the middle gray here, and then we're going to get lighter. So as we get lighter, I'm going to add white to the brush as we go around this top part. And as I'm going upward, I'm going to change, and I'm going to get lighter and lighter in this area. So I'm adding more white. Now I want him to look wrinkly, so each time that I pull my brush across the canvas, I am using it with all those colors showing through. I had a little bit of blue come out over here, I had a little green come out over here, and I keep picking up the white. I'm not over blending it, I'm just laying down the brush, and I am moving the brush in the same rounded direction. I'm going round and round and round. That is so important to get that arch going in that direction. Adding white to the palette is important so that you get this light color coming in this middle area. Just keep adding white to your palette so that you can add it and get lighter and lighter as you go up to the top. That's very important. Find the line, find the edge. He's got this hump in the middle, so make sure that you go up, down, and back around. You just keep adding white to this brush and to the canvas, and then as you come back in here where the round is, you'll get back, and all of his body continues to have the white. And as soon as you get that area light, then you'll pick up some of the grays again, and with the grays you'll come in and make it transition from light to medium as you move back in towards the bottom or the back end. Now we're transitioning from light to medium brown again, or a medium gray, whichever you want it to have. Some of the manatees are a little bit browner, some of them a little bit more gray, and you can use either one or both of those colors in here. But I went from light to medium to dark as I went down and came back into this section that's darker. So now I'm going to add a little bit more of the black, so by the time I get here I can be a little bit darker again. So I'm using the toe of my brush to come in and make it a little bit darker and have a line here that shows the back of his body. And now I have gone from light to medium to dark, and then from light to medium to dark again. And it gives just a beautiful flow to his body. He looks like he's just rounded out just the way he needs to. I'm going to load a little bit more water on my brush. I'm going to load more black, more brown and white, and I'm going to come in and start this direction, and I'm going to make sure that I get those wrinkled spaces in there. I want to build a few of those first, and then I'll pick back up with more of the light color and mix that in. So there is my darkest color. It's not as black it is down, it's not as black as it is down here because that's under his body. But it is very gray here. But as soon as I get that gray in that makes the shape of his body, then I'm gonna go back and start adding the white in again to my palette. So from this area this way, I'm just gonna use the toe of my brush, spread it out, bring it towards the middle of the canvas. Just bring it out and around towards the middle. Out and around towards the middle. And once I get the look that I want him to have on the edge and make sure that he's got a nice big fat round nose right here, then I know that I have his shape the way I want it to look. Now, I left just a little place for his eye on both sides, so we'll get that in just a minute. So now I'm going back and adding more black and brown to my palette so that I can get that on my brush and come in and start the building of this part. This is grayer in like between his nose area on this side, and then everything else gets lighter. So I'm gonna pick up more white, and I wanna make sure that I get this light enough in that area that you can see the difference between the light grays and the dark grays. So in this area, I'm using the white and allowing it to go right across the top. I'm using that circle, 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 round, 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 archy kind of brush stroke to make sure it feels like that it is a round shape and it becomes a form because we made it go from light to medium to dark just the right way with just the right colors. So now that we have his body shaped up, we're gonna go and use a little bit of a light to detail in like he's in the water. We're gonna get a little swiggle of a light with a little blue on it. We're gonna lay it right on top of the space. We're just gonna make it's a little white with a little blue, a little gray in it, and it's just a little zigzag, just a little zag to make the water look like that it's coming right in front of his body. So we have water everywhere, and we want it to look like that he, of course, is in water. So to do that, we're just gonna put a little bit of a spray of water right on top of him. Now, once we get that done, I'm gonna change over and I'm gonna get a smaller round brush that I was showing you a while ago, and we're gonna make his eyes and the space inside his nose so it looks really dark. I'm gonna come in this area, and in this shape that we're gonna start with, it's gonna be like a football shape. So it's more or less gonna be pointed on both ends, but rounded in the middle. We're gonna do the similar kind of shading on the nose, but the nose is different because it is almost like, if you look at the top of it, of course, it's very round, but we're gonna have that really dark area that you, all light is, of course, gone. You can't see any light in that space. And then we'll get a little bit grayer up underneath that to finish filling in the space because it changes from no light up under there to a little bit of light that just barely goes in there. So we went from really dark black to sort of a medium gray, and then we finished filling in the space that actually makes his nostrils. Now that we have that done, I'm going to use this small little brush to add more white and give him the look of light coming in above him on his nose so that you can feel and see that snout just coming right out in that space. That's important that that's light enough that it stands out away from the body. Then we want to give him an accent of a few more wrinkles, and so to do that I'm using a little bit of white, and of course using the palette that I have you can see that the white turns this grayish color. So it's not white out of the tube, but it is a light gray color. And it is lighter than I had up here previously. So now I'm making it even lighter. Just make sure that as you put those lights in, that you transition it from a light color to a medium color to a dark color. We want him to look wrinkly, so that's why we're coming back in with this light color and this smaller brush. So each one of those lines that I put in shows his body being very wrinkly, very fat, pudgy. So that's the shape that you can get if you use a smaller brush to get in and show that. Of course, we want that light coming up in on the top. If you didn't get an edge that you wanted on here with the big white brush a while ago, you can always come in now with this brush and get a clean edge that you need for the shape of his body, so it shows up just the way you want it to. Going to add a little bit more white here to show that roundness. And then I'm going to come in and add a little white comma like mark up underneath his nose so it really pudges out. And one more highlight in this area where this matches this shape. You can see this shape and this shape are the same. So if I use a little bit of this gray color in here on this right hand side, you can see now it almost matches the shape that we have over here, and you can tell that the light's hitting it. Remember a while ago we wanted that little bit of water and the blue to just come over it. So now a little bit of the light that we have in all of these other edges here and here and here now create the whole figure. So thank you for watching today. I hope you've enjoyed painting your manatee, and I hope that you will send your pictures to the Art Center of Wilmington Island to show us what you've done.